There's an invisible war inside you. When comes a moment in every human life when the outer world becomes silent and the inner world becomes loud. Not loud with noise, but loud with truth. It usually happens in a dark season, a collapse, a betrayal, a separation, a moment where the world you built falls apart in front of you. And in that collapse, something strange happens. You begin to hear voices you never noticed before. Not voices of madness, voices of guidance. Inside you, a voice pulls you forward, another pulls you inward, a third lifts you upward, and the other tries to pull you back into who you used to be. This chapter moves through 7 stages. 7 stages that explain the invisible structure inside every human being, that reveal why people feel divided inside themselves, that show how destiny begins the moment these voices are understood. To understand the real meaning behind spirit, soul, intuition, and ego, stay until the end of this video, because your destiny depends on knowing which voice is speaking inside you at the right moment. This is the story of spirit, soul, intuition, and ego. And once you know the difference, your life will never move the same again. Stage 1. The spirit, the voice that knew before you did. Some people think spirit speaks softly. Spirit always speaks like lightning, quick, clear, undeniable. It doesn't ask, it doesn't explain, it doesn't negotiate. It simply says, "This is the way." Think back to the biggest turning points of your life. Leaving places you outgrew, letting go of people who were not aligned, moving towards someone whose presence felt like truth, making choices you could not logically justify, yet your whole being knew they were correct. That was spirit. Spirit is not emotional. It is not sentimental. It does not care about your comfort. Spirit cares about alignment. It moves you towards the destiny written for you long before you were born. In the Bible, Isaiah 30:21, you will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." In Islam teaching, spirit is described as guidance descending with clarity, bringing direction when confusion disappears. In Hindu tradition, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks of divine guidance appearing whenever order is lost, the truth must be restored. In Kabbalah, this force is called Ruach, the breath of God moving within human consciousness. Spirit is that compass that cannot lie. And the moment you begin listening to your spirit, life stops feeling random and begins to feel guided. Stage 2. The soul, the voice of recognition. If spirit is the voice of direction, the soul is the voice of remembrance. The soul does not shout, it recognizes. You meet someone and something inside whispers, "I know you." You enter a place and your body says, "I belong here." That's recognition, familiarity, and ancient connection. The soul does not operate in time. It operates in eternity. That is why soul recognition can feel like grief and joy at the same time, because the soul remembers something the mind does not yet understand. In Islam, this is described through the qalb, the heart that remembers truth beyond intellect. In Kabbalah and Judaism teaching, the Neshama represents the eternal identity that exists before birth. In Hindu teaching, this is Atma, the soul recognizing its eternal nature. Soul is the reason certain people feel like destiny, the moment you meet them. Soul is the reason certain places feel like home, the moment you arrive. The spirit knows, the soul remembers. And when these two voices speak together, pretending not to know becomes impossible. Stage 3. Intuition, the language of feeling. Intuition does not use words, it speaks through sensation. A shift in breathing, a pressure in the chest, a warmth in the gut, a sudden discomfort that warns you, a stillness that tells you everything is right. Intuition speaks as electricity. It is the body reacting before the mind understands why. In Taoism, this is described as returning to the original nature, the instinct that has never been distorted. In Sufi mysticism, it is called basera, inner sight beyond physical preparation. Intuition is a translator between the divine and the human. Spirit knows, soul recognizes, intuition feels. Stage 4. Ego, the voice of fear and distortion. And then there is ego. Ego is not the enemy, but ego is the loudest voice. Ego screams when spirit whispers. Ego panics when soul remembers. Ego trembles when intuition moves. Ego says, "What if you are wrong? What if you lose everything? Fix this now. You are not enough." Ego creates urgency where none exists. Fear where there is truth. Chaos where there is clarity. Buddhist teaching, attachment and identification with fear creates suffering. In Christian tradition, the struggle of the flesh represents separation from higher truth. In Islam teaching, the nafs represents the lower self driven by fear and reaction. And in Kabbalah, the animal soul reacts for survival rather than alignment. Ego survives when you forget who you are. It weakens the moment remembrance returns. Stage 5. The moment everything changes. There comes a day when the difference between these voices becomes clear. Usually after a heartbreak, after a loss, after humiliation, after everything familiar disappears. And in that silence, truth becomes loud. You begin to notice. Spirit's voice carries no fear. Soul's voice carries no doubt. Intuition's voice carries no urgency. Ego's voice carries no peace. And suddenly life makes sense. You see why certain paths ended, why certain people left, why certain connections remained unforgettable. This is the moment destiny begins, because now you can hear yourself. Stage 6. How to separate the voices. When spirit speaks, everything becomes clear. When soul speaks, everything becomes familiar. When your intuition speaks, everything becomes quiet. But when ego speaks, everything becomes urgent. Spirit is clarity. Soul is recognition. Intuition is sensation. Ego is noise. The moment this becomes clear, reaction disappears and response begins. Every destiny begins with one decision: to listen to truth instead of fear. Stage 7. What happens when you listen correctly? When your spirit leads, path aligns. When your soul leads, relationships align. When your intuition leads, timing aligns. But when your ego leads, everything collapses. Peace appears when the inner world becomes ordered. Destiny becomes reachable when fear stops pretending to be guidance. When spirit, soul, and intuition move together, a human being walks with quiet power. Ancient traditions call this the alignment of the inner temple. This is the beginning of wholeness. The final stage, the missing voice. There is a fourth voice most people never discover. A voice that appears only when spirit, soul, and intuition become stronger than ego. The voice of alignment is the voice of destiny, the voice of true self emerging from within. This is the moment a human being stops searching outside and begins becoming who they were always meant to be. Because clarity replaces confusion, peace replaces urgency, and direction replaces fear. You no longer move to escape pain. You move because truth becomes clear. Decisions become simple. relationships become honest, and life stops feeling like a struggle against the world. This is not perfection, this is alignment. The moment when you think, what they feel, and what you know begin to move in the same direction. And when that happens, life no longer feels forced, it begins to unfold. Most people spend their lives trying to control outcomes. Few learn to align with truth. And alignment is where destiny begins. In the next chapter, we speak about that voice. So if this spoke to something deep within you, stay, subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Until then, stand steady, walk through,